white-topped head, passed by the depot. I didn't want to believe this to be my father. He did pass by, so I waited a little longer until the same car drove by the depot again. That's got to be Dad, I thought. He of the I will not stop and ask for directions mode. It would become clearer than ever during that week-long stay with him. One that I could not know would be our last together. How much he detested authority. He was a Navy fighter pilot in World War II. An earlier version of Tom Cruise in Top Gun. He's even stationed near San Diego like the men in the film were. He would fly off of and back onto an aircraft carrier the size of a postage stamp, he would exclaim at some angles. A photographer miraculously caught a series of pictures of his crash landing on board and the burning of his plane. He crawled out unseen by most, who thought he was a goner. He was decorated after many missions in the Pacific Theater. He came home from the war unscathed, physically. He would describe his survival. I kept watching these God-fearing Christians praying the night before a mission. I couldn't help noticing they were the ones who didn't return. I didn't believe in God. I think that kept me alive. I was the only one flying the plane. He was the squadron leader and an excellent flyer. He did everything well, and usually his own way. He was unkempt on board, out of uniform, talking back to the commanding officers, never saluting. He was never reprimanded. The stories came from my mother. I would never know this about him. My dad drove up to the curb in the car that drove by 2 times before. They moved the goddamn station. I went to the old one and it's not there anymore. Well, no, that's not. Come on, get it. We hugged warmly, and I took in the man who had been slowly losing his stature to a point where he was a good 6 inches shorter. The car ride was frightening. Later, my sister would tell me that our dad's driving had become quite erratic, so much so that she refused to ride in the car when he was at the wheel. You'd think she could have told me this before. But what could I have done? So I just white-knuckled it, cringing each time my side of the car was skimming the shoulder, which was most of the time, convincing myself that, well, I probably accomplished everything I wanted to in life, and so what if this is my last day? I thought it was better if I didn't talk. No, it wasn't. Nothing made any difference. This was his car, and he would drive it until it died, or the occupants of it died. I walked through his small, familiar house, realizing that this is the first time we were ever alone like this together. There was no awkwardness. When I finally got settled, he pointed to the infamous pile of bills and correspondence from annoying collectors. It was alarming. There was no plan. I already knew that my dad had never accepted the scenario that he might ever die. If he did, he would somewhat jokingly exclaim, "I would like to be stuffed and have blue button eyes sewn on." I liked the oddity of his humor. He once did this oil painting of the nativity scene, a sacred depiction, until you looked to the rooftop and saw the Santa and sleigh and saw the Christmas tree near the crest. It was agreed that I would at least start sorting it. But when I pointed out the enormity of the mess, I was banned from the pile. Things would turn out to be not as bad as I thought they were, but I was putting a chink in his armor, and I, of all people, was not meant to see that. I knew in an instant he wanted to keep me in the good graces in which I held him. I was relegated to a drawer instead, filled with sentiment. His history was here, and I was meant to sort through it. An unintended gift. Letters from his grandfather to his grandmother around the birth of Junior and his brothers. A letter from my mother to her mother-in-law, sent from Mexico around the first month of their year-long stay. But it is from this drawer that I learned the golden child my father was. His mother, my grandmother, had put together a book of memories, of firsts, devoted to her first surviving son. She already had 2 full-term births, but Junior was the first surviving child. And Junior, the namesake of my grandfather, would display an ingenuity, intelligence, and creativity never ever seen before anywhere on the face of this earth. He was meant to feel special, and it did him in good stead. I suddenly understood everything about my father, if one can in one sitting like that. He was the first surviving child. And he would be celebrated throughout his youth. He would never know he was anything but remarkable. My dad came from a different time. He didn't especially like kids, never got the manual, but he was incredibly smart, funny, intuitive, off-center, and loving. One of the things he wanted to accomplish while I was there was to physically return a check that had arrived for his now deceased love to the Social Security Department. He had already talked to a nice woman in the office and wanted to make sure that it got returned to the coffers of the department. So we went together, and at first were faced with a very large guard who could not have been more than 12. And when my father told him what we wanted to do, we were steered toward the waiting area meant for the elderly by all looks of it. No, this would not do. I wanted to take the check and return it to the window over there. He was pointing to a closed window, but he knew that the woman he had talked to was behind it. The 12-year-old guard was unyielding, and which caused my father, who reached the boy guard's belt, to start exclaiming in loud voice the task he wanted to perform. I just want to take this check and give it to the nice woman by the window over there. Maybe because of altitude, the simpleton in the uniform could not hear my father and again began steering us toward the waiting area. I am returning a check! I'm giving it back! I just want to do that! The boycott began ushering us out the door. We were being kicked out of the Social Security Department because we were, or he was, being unruly. Very cool on one level. My dad, the radical! But I looked at his red face and steely features and saw the whole thing in his light. This had been a pissed off little white-haired old man who refused to accept the changing times. He was also holding a check addressed to his dead wife that he could not shake. the Thursday of my 50th birthday, that day on Thursday when I would turn 50, the big 50, that day of my birth 50 years prior had arrived. Nothing was said through the morning. It was agreed that we would meet my sister and her husband at a steakhouse halfway between us and them. When I reminded my dad about the plan, asked him to take a shower and put on clean clothing, he seemed surprised to find out it was my birthday, which is why we were going to meet my sister and her husband in the first place. When my suggestion that I drive and he experienced the elegance of the passenger seat was rejected, and I spent another scary ride to the restaurant. But once there, all was well. My sister was comfort, and her husband good company. I got my birthday wish, although it didn't come easily. When we made a toast to my celebration, I gently nudged. Just say it. I just want to hear it. It's easy. Happy birthday. I'll have it known that on that day in history, the man said the words! I probably didn't need anything else. The week came to an end without much fanfare. There's still so much I wanted to do. Get stuff organized, clean the house, make sure there's enough food in the fridge. Spend another moment. Mother Nature had it in for us. The long ride to the airport was excited by a ridiculous storm. I mean the kind that makes itself known. I am riding in the passenger seat, enjoying the view from the shoulder, watching my life pass before me, while rain blasts from all sides with as much visibility as a car wash. I am saying the rosary in gibberish, all the time convincing myself that this is probably my last day, but ain't it grand that it's with my pappy as it should be? After losing pounds in angst, and we finally arrived at the departure curb safely. This was the last time. I knew it. Our goodbye was simple. I love you. I love you too, Dad. We both knew that we had to get on with our lives. But I was cognizant of what was between us. I'm pleased with that. I know who I am. The short, white-haired man behind the steering wheel drove off. And I knew I would never see him again.